Well, confirmands, I have news for you, but it's actually news for all of us. God needs us. The world needs us to be different. Most of us live lives where we kind of like to just fit in, be noticed only in the right cool ways, one of the gang, hanging out in a comfortable place in the lunchroom of life, not making waves of any kind anywhere. God doesn't need that. The world doesn't need that. God needs us to be different. But lest you get the wrong idea, let me tell you what different does not mean. The world does not need one more judgy Christian. One more judgy Christian pointing the finger at everybody and saying they're going to the bad place. And by the way, you ask the average person on the street what they think of Christians, and you will get a number of responses in the line of judgmental. The world does not need Christians who miss the fact that Jesus spends a lot of time in the Bible saying, "Do not judge. Let the one without sin cast the first stone. Take the log out of your eye before you tell the neighbor about the speck in his eye." There are a lot of us walking around with sharp little tongues, sore throwing shoulders, and lumber in the eye. The world doesn't need that. God doesn't need that. God needs us to be different. But different doesn't mean boring. God knows the world does not need another Christian who is just no fun. How can you have a relationship with Jesus and not laugh? There's an old saying, you're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. You know the type? Thing is, no fun Christians are usually as fake as a $3 bill. And remember, there is a $2 bill. And as any kid knows, people who are not authentic tend to be ineffective, partly because there's a little alarm in our brain that goes off when we are around them. And that little alarm says, danger, this person is not real. And right or wrong, when that alarm goes off in our head, our instinct tells us to be careful, because not real might mean not trustworthy. Be real. Human. Fully human people have a sense of humor. They laugh at jokes. They're passionate about life. Fully human people even get a little crazy sometimes. They have fun. The world does not need another Christian who's no fun. God needs you to be different. Oh, and the world does not need another Christian who thinks faith is just about your emotional relationship with God. Human beings are really good at taking things that could make a difference in the world and putting them into boxes that basically render them ineffective. In terms of faith, sometimes this looks like this. I got Jesus in my heart. Now, nothing wrong with having Jesus in your heart, though it might be a little tight in there for him. But there is something wrong with it when it's like he's trapped in there and now you can do whatever you want. Slave traders tended to think they had Jesus in their heart. The barons of the early industrial revolution, making huge contributions to churches while sapping the very life out of their employees, including children, thought they had Jesus in their heart. And many people today do awful things, say awful things, or permit awful things to happen and somehow feel right with God, because they've reduced faith to something they can control, their emotional relationship to God, how they think they feel about God. They've reduced faith to something that only applies to the next life. Yes, Lord, I believe, give me that ticket to heaven. The world does not need that. God does not need that. God needs us to be different. Okay, so what does different look like? Amaya, Alexis, Ella, you are part of a tradition and a ministry here. One that includes people who came before you, like Justin, who read your names a few minutes ago, and Annika, who helped hand you your gifts. A ministry Michelle started over 15 years ago called Bold. And a ministry that has included, over those years, some really gnarly t-shirts, including this one, which, aside from being incredibly soft, tells us how we are to be different. Tells us how God wants us to be. So what does it mean to be bold for Christ? Well, it means being serving and trusting. It means being patient and forgiving and giving. It means being joyful and kind, peaceful, loving, obedient, and faithful. Notice it all means action. No sitting at home thinking, I got Jesus in my heart, and then kicking the dog and growling at family members, and then texting something nasty about a classmate or a coworker. Being different is living out a life of love. Standing with that kid or that person who needs a friend. Working to make the world right in places where the world is out of whack. Offering forgiveness to the one who has hurt you. Accepting God's forgiveness, because we're all going to need it. Trusting God to be there in life and in all we try to do for God. Our faith is called to be an active, growing thing, not something you take home today and put on a dusty shelf. Different looks like the gospel with legs, walking around in this world. Different looks like Jesus. I know being like Jesus is kind of a tall order. But that's why none of us here are done. From the littlest baby to the one knocking on 100. Just like our confirmants have steps to keep taking, we still have supper club at 5:30 on Wednesdays, rock class downstairs at Trinity Place on Sundays, mission trips, late nights, lots more. No one is graduating today. No one here has graduated. We have to keep walking the walk to become the difference in this world God needs. God isn't done with any of us yet. God needs us to be different. And God will need that until the day the world realizes that different is what we all should be.